I heard Donald Harrison talk about this one particular rhythm. It's called a bombada. It's a rhythm that comes from Africa, and it was played basically on the drum called a djembe drum. It's a hand drum. Now, the djembe drum in that particular rhythm was able to survive the transatlantic slave trade. Yet Africans brought to the New World, as it was called. Of course, we all know there was no New World because people were already here. In Americas, North, South, Central America, the Caribbean. The djembe rhythm, the bombada, was brought to Cuba. It was played not on the djembe. They started playing it on the congas. These two drums right here. They also had the bongos. They played the same rhythm on the bongos. This same rhythm was also played in Congo Square. I don't know how many of you know about the history of Congo Square, where slaves were allowed to congregate on Sundays and, just let loose and let off some steam for all the hard work they did during the course of their week. This particular rhythm was then brought over to the bass drum. Now, the bass drum is more American and European than it is African or Cuban or Afro-Cuban. And that same rhythm that I was playing on the bongos was played on the bass drum. That rhythm is used throughout all New Orleans music. If you were to hear a modern-day brass band, you could hear that same bombada rhythm played by the bass drummers. Now, the snare drummers are doing something a little different, but those guys, too, are kind of like using that rhythm. And as I said, we don't think about playing rhythms, but that's kind of like the basis of what you hear in the modern brass bands. Now, a lot of brass band drummers have expanded on that rhythm. And what I mean by expanded is, instead of just playing that, they'll take that same rhythm and syncopate it. Or like I do with myself and Derrick when we're playing, if he's playing something, I'm going to play that particular rhythm, but I'm going to leave enough space in that rhythm so that he could have a place to play. And we're going to try to demonstrate what I mean right now about, creating spaces in the rhythm so that whenever we're playing, we have to make sure that we're playing with each other, not against each other. I don't know how many of you are drummers out there or aspiring drummers, but one of the most important things for drummers, I think, is to have space, because you want to have space not only for the snare drum, but also for the sousaphone and the tuba, as well as for the horn players or guitar players who are playing with you. So right now we're going to try to demonstrate what I mean by space. We're just going to play a basic rhythm, and I'm going to leave enough space in there so that he can play enough so that it can come together as one. Because I believe our ideal situation is to sound like a drum set. And if you ever heard Rebirth, when we're playing, if you don't see the two guys back there, you think it's a drum set. And if you think it's a drum set, then we're actually doing our job. So let's just give them a basic rhythm. One of the things that people always ask me about is the traditional brass bands. And there's always an argument about what is traditional, what's not traditional. And to me, tradition is just something that's passed down from generation to generation. Some people say, well, it's a beat and it's a feeling. I say, not necessarily. And I think what they confuse is like when they hear some drummers playing, they're playing a straight four. And they think that's traditional, when in actuality, that's not tradition. Like I said, tradition is just passed down from one generation to the next. The older guys played it that way because the tuba player was playing boom, 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 and the bass drum just followed what the tuba player was doing. And so people always say, well, you guys are not tradition. I say, well, in a sense, we are. We've been around 26 years. Now we are the tradition. Not to ruffle anyone's feathers, but it's just something that's going to be passed down, and what we're doing, someone else is going to pick up and do also. In addition to that, people say, well, what about hip-hop in the brass band genre of music? I said, well, some of the newer brass bands are also doing that too. I mean, those guys are playing actually what they hear on the radio, what they see on TV, and of course, they're going to be influenced by that kind of stuff. And I try not to tell them, no, don't do that, do more of the traditional stuff, as it's called. I say, do whatever you feel. But being from New Orleans, I know they're going to end up playing exactly what, whatever they hear out in the streets. So right now we're going to do I'm going to do a traditional, we're going to do what's called a traditional beat that a lot of people hear from the older brass bands. they call that traditional. Where I have an argument with them is, if I took that same beat, instead of playing a straight 4, and just start playing in the cut time, it becomes untraditional. And I say, well, that's really not tradition. And some people say, well, we just want to hear the way it was played when Louis Armstrong was playing. I say, well, I understand that. So it's really no argument there, but we still have respect for what those guys did, and hopefully they'll have respect for the kind of stuff that we're doing.
Hi, y'all. My name is Derrick Tabb. I actually grew up in the Tremé area where a lot of the brass bands was located at. So I had the great opportunity of hanging around a lot of the brass band musicians. And I wanted to play the sousaphone till Anthony Tuba Fat Lacy made me carry the sousaphone. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So I picked up the lightest instrument I could possibly find in the band. And I found myself hanging around a lot of the snare drummers. So I picked up a lot of these styles. But I wanted to go to Andrew J. Bell Junior High School, and there I learned the technical side of playing the snare drum. And I found out a lot of snare drummers that was in a brass band didn't play snare drum. They played clarinet, flute, tuba. None of them really played snare drum, but they had all these grooves, and they didn't really know what they was playing. So I added like the technical side to it because I believe I am still about the only guy that plays snare drum that plays snare drum in the school.
Exactly.
So I brought more of the rudiments to the brass band world, and with the encouragement of Philip Frazier, who really pushed me more forward into doing what I wanted to do on the snare drum, I just started taking it to a different level. And I also was probably one of the only guys that played with every brass band in the city on snare drum. I just made it a point that I wanted to do all the different styles of playing the snare drum. I didn't want to just do one style of playing. Like every brass band mostly had a snare drum and a bass drummer that always was together. Olympia had Papa and Boogie, right. Big Daddy and Uncle Benny was with the Chosen Few. You know, everybody, Pinstripe had their drummers. Everybody had a set drummer that they used. So I became like the original free agent on snare drum. I wanted to gig with everybody, so if you missed the gig and you played snare drum, I was there to make your gig for you. And it was like, everybody would be like, what are you doing, man? You changing the way we play. I was like, well, that's the way I play with this band over here. No, don't come here doing that. I don't want you doing all that. You're playing too much. And over the years, I just, with the help of Philip Frazier, the hell with it, I'm gonna do it. And now a lot of people like what I'm doing because, like I say, I was probably the only snare drummer that played snare drum in school that plays in a brass band. And a lot of stuff that I do now, I think really fast because I guess the rudiments just have to come quicker. Exactly. You know, you have to think a lot faster with the rudiments and everything that you're doing, especially playing with the Rebirth, because the songs get a lot faster. And different songs, you could do some stuff on. Some songs you just can't do the same stuff on. So I wind up practicing a lot more. I actually had a roommate that Stafford Agee, who stopped being my roommate because I practiced so much. And that's basically my job, is to add I call myself the freelance. Shorty and Phil, they work together. I'm just there freelancing, finding out where I belong in the gaps, and take that gap and fill it up. We try to do different styles. And you find yourself hearing different stuff when, you know, so you have to add a drum or a cymbal or something to it to hear, to play exactly what you feeling and hearing. I tend to switch my drum on tum-tum a lot. I'm gonna show y'all that in a few. I created a beat that's really popular right now. I think that just about every drummer is probably doing it. I showed, when I was coming up, there had this guy named Keith Anderson, right? Keith, not Keith Anderson,
Kenneth?
Austin,
Kenneth
Keith
Austin.
Austin, Kenneth Austin.
Kenneth Austin.
Eyes. He was like my idol. He was the first snare drummer for the Rebirth.
Right.
Or second snare drummer.
First.
First snare drummer for the Rebirth. And he used to do this beat that just went. And I was just like amazed that he could do that. I was young. So I used to talk to him a lot and I used to say, Eyes, what made you come up with that beat? He was like, man, I was tired. My arm used to get tired. So I just do that beat. And I said, oh, so it wasn't nothing you created. He was like, no, everybody does that beat. I was like, oh, okay. So one day I was actually doing and hit the drum like that. And that started me off doing, and I'm left-handed too. So a lot of stuff that I learned was taught to me by right-handed people. I could switch it around and play left-handed and confuse them. So instead of going, I start going. And that right now is one of the most famous beats right now for a snare drummer in New Orleans. A lot of the snare drummers has changed to where they playing nearly a whole second line doing that beat there.
The drum in Africa is for communicating. If you hear a certain beat, you know where that beat comes from. Like, no, that's not my village. That's from such and such. So I know not to go that way. I need to be going this way. That's kind of like with the brass bands in New Orleans. If you're on the street, if you were to hear Rebirth on the street, be like, that's Rebirth, that's not. You know right away just by hearing the rhythm section, which is amazing. You know, people like, I knew you weren't there because I didn't hear the bass drum. Like, you did? Like, I never really paid attention to it, but people know. So that's really amazing. Also, there's another beat that Derrick created on the song that we did. Every drummer in the city has been trying to learn this beat. I don't know how he created this beat or what he was thinking of. It's on a song called Talkin Loud. It's actually a James Brown tune that we just heard. We up in Seattle, driving, listening to it. We said we're going to play that song. So he comes up with the beat. And every drummer in the city wants to know, where did he come up? Show them the beat I'm talking about.
Wait a minute, shouldn't we turn off the camera?
No, they can get this. This is good. This is good. And no one can catch this.
It's actually a warm-up. I just stretch the roll out. Instead of playing, I believe, an 11-stroke roll, you play it out to a 15. So a lot of people can't play it that fast and keep the groove
At the same time.
at the same time. So I just try to experiment. I actually was riding in the truck with Stafford, and Stafford used to always challenge me to doing different stuff. When they come down to me practicing, he'll just throw stuff at me. Try this. So I said, I want to try a beat that I know not too many people is going to be able to do. And I want to keep it in a groove. So we were listening to us. We had tried the song. We just, again, we don't practice. We tried the song in
Seattle.
Portland,
Oregon. Right.
Portland, Oregon.
Right.
Oregon. We tried the song and we just got on stage, played it, and the guy recorded it. So we were listening to it, listening to all the mess ups and all that. And it actually came out a lot better than what we expected. But I felt the drum beat I was playing on it was just boring because it was actually just a warm up that we was trying to do a mic check. Right. That we started the song off, and I was like, man, that sounds stupid to me what I'm playing. I don't like that. So Stafford was like, you always whine about what you're playing, do something different. I said, all right, I need to shut him up. So we used to ride in the van for hours. And my thing, I used to drive Stafford crazy because I practice for hours. And I used to buy drums and practice for hours in the car. So I said, while we driving. So I used to say, I said, man, I'm going to just make a beat that nobody could probably catch. Or if they catch it, they're going to be working to catch it. And I came up with that beat. You want to hear it? You want to hear it in the song?
We're gonna play that song. We're gonna play that song that beat goes to.
Yeah.
So you guys get to see what it's like. So I'm gonna get the other guys from Rebirth to come up, Mr. Stafford Agee, and also a Saints fan. Mr. Chadrick Honore, he's waffling. Vincent Broussard, my brother Philip Frazier. So that's the beat that song was created for. And it's amazing how we actually put it together because it's actually a James Brown tune with a beat that he created. And we have words that go with that particular song also. The next song we're gonna do is this song is called Caribbean Second Line. I wanna do this song because In this song, you can kind of like hear that beat that I was talking about, the bambata beat in the song. We started off like 4 or 5 different ways. Sometimes we start off with the trombones or just with the drums. It depends on who's on the bandstand. So guys late, we're going to play that particular song. So if you come to see a Rebirth show and we're doing Caribbean second line, that's because somebody in the band isn't on time. So we're going to do that song right now because it has a Latin feel to it. So y'all want to do the trombones? What?
Trombones.
We got some people missing.
And in that particular tune, that's where you hear a lot more of the bambata beat in that particular tune. And it's real Latin. It's called Caribbean second line. It's kind of strange because that tune was created by the Rebirth Brass Band. And I always ask them, where did you guys get that from? They have no idea. They said, well, James Andrews, trumpet player, he's like, well, I was one of the originators of the song. And I asked him, he's still like, I don't know, man. It's just something they heard, I believe, when they went down to the Caribbean. And they picked it up and they brought it back to New Orleans. And it had a Caribbean Latin feel to it. So he says Caribbean second line. And we just kind of picked it up from those guys and continue to play it.
You know, if the crowd is at a certain groove, you know, and that song is the song that they want to hear, but everybody's at a hype groove, it don't make no sense for us to slow it down and play it slow. We keep it at a hype groove. We just change the groove. That make Phil have to change the rhythm that he's playing. Mm-hmm. Or if Phil changed the rhythm that he's playing, that makes us have to change. Because every time Shorty changes the rhythm that he's playing, I have to change. So it's like communicating without talking. So it just naturally, I guess it just
Right.
naturally.
Music is a universal language. No matter what color you are, where you're from, if you're in tune to what's going on with the music, you can communicate. It's a very high form of communication. Because, I mean, if the audience is real hyped, like he said, there's a lot of energy in the place, we just start changing up right there and create something new. And then when the night is over, it's like, hey, I want you guys to play that the way you played it that night. It was like, that's impossible. We just created that on the spot. So we can play it again, but it won't be that way. It'll be something completely different. Myself and my brother Philip Frazier has been in the band for 26 years. So that's very important because we're the bottom, the foundation of the band. And so what I mean by the communication is I never have to look at him while I'm playing because I'm always turned this way. I can just feel and hear him and play off what he's playing. And that's really important. A lot of bands, once you start changing that rhythm section, you lose a lot. So that's really important. What has changed is we have a lot of different guys up front. We don't care. I always tell them, I don't care who you put in the front. If we keep this the same, it's going to be Rebirth.
I've been in the band 13 years, going on 14. So 13 years of playing together, you know.
Right.
We never talk to each other, but in the calls.
That's it. That's it. We also one of the things I always point out to people whenever we change snare drums, when Derrick first got in the band, it's the story I always tell. He always tells the story like, man, I was standing next to this guy. I'm 6-something. He's 5-something. He's trying to talk over my head. He was like, man, you were telling Philip, man, something don't sound right. And I'm looking at it. I wasn't talking to him. I was like, no, this ain't gonna work. So we called him up one day. He said, what's going on? I said, we need to have a rehearsal. Something we never do. He said, rehearsal? Yeah, I said, just us three. So we could, because I knew once we got locked up together, like I said, no matter what was going on in the front, this is what pushed the band. And whenever we do sound checks, people say, what do you want to sound check the most? We always want to sound check the bass drum the most because a lot of sound guys don't get a chance to put a mic on a bass drum on the outside of the bass drum. Most mics go on the inside of the bass drum. So it's kind of hard to capture that sound that we want. So I tell them, I say, look, this is what we want. We want you to put the bass drum in all the monitors all around. Because if they can feel the bass, which is very Afrocentric, because it makes you move, it makes you dance, they're going to know where they're supposed to be going at. So we tell them, turn the bass up and make sure everybody can hear it, and turn the saxophone up. Because the sax is like the voice instead of the trumpet. So the guy said, what you mean? I said, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the rhythm section to push everything. We don't want the front pushing the back. We want the back pushing the front. Like when you get in the car, you want your bass in the back and your tweeters in the front. You want your bass pushing the front. You don't want the opposite way around. So it's like a car. When you hear it, it's like a car coming at you. Like, damn, yeah, I feel it. And I also hear it, but I also feel it. If the bass ain't knocking, the band ain't rocking. That's a bass guitar, string bass, tuba, bass drum. If that's not rocking, you're not going to be sitting there listening because you need that pulse. I don't care what you're listening to, rock, hip-hop, reggae, whatever. That's the thing that's going to make you move. That's the heartbeat that you feel when you're in that loud club at night. Like, what the hell was that? That's what it was. That's why they turn it up so loud. You're drunk, but you feel that more than anything.
We always say, nobody come to see Rebirth. They always come to hear us. We come there, we a party.
Not looking for perfection from us.
Right, we come there to have fun, and we want y'all to feel this and hear the same way that we feeling. If we playing all dead and trying to get everything all perfect. You're not gonna feel it. You're gonna be saying, man, what the hell wrong with Rebirth? But if we come up there and do what we get paid to do, have fun, then y'all have fun. You know, the crowd come there. That's what they come to. Everybody come to see us on Tuesday night, and I didn't talk to 1,000 people that asked me,
"Are you in the band?
What you doing here?" I'm in the band. I've been and just got off the stage doing 2 hours. So it just proved the point that nobody comes to see us. They actually come to hear us.
Right.
And for anybody, if they ever come see us and they try to request us to play a song and we don't play it, it's nothing personal.
Not at all. If we didn't feel it.
We're not feeling it at that time, so it's like we're trying to accommodate everybody in the room. And if you want us to feel like funking it up, and it's not time for it, or we just don't feel it, we won't play it. And they be looking at it like, I asked them to play a song and they didn't play it.
And we don't care about how much money, because we done got offered money to play a song. I got $100, play that song. No,
it ain't gonna work.
We're gonna disappoint 100 other people.
Yeah.
That's gonna be like, man, y'all ain't play that song too hot. I know, because we wasn't feeling it. That's what we strive off of feeling.
Are the horn arrangements done the same way the drum arrangements are when you're playing Caribbean second line and the sax decided to harmonize the trombone part? Is that going to be what you're hearing that night as far as who's going to take, what's that?
For that moment. It
It always changes. It's spontaneous.
Everything is spontaneous. Whatever, I might have something going on in my head. I might not even be on the bandstand, but on the bandstand, I might just start playing something else. Because I'm in Never Neverland or something, you know, and the band is here, and if I'm hearing something else, I could be hearing a different song in my head. I might start playing off of the song that I'm hearing in my head, and it won't even conflict with what the saxophone is doing.
So then how often does that, you know, that shows to me like all the time things are changing in terms of who's leading and who's following the line and stuff like that. Like how often does that change within a song? Like, does it seem like you're in front of it now and now all of a sudden someone else takes over, you're in back of it and all that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Mainly try to let the trumpet lead, and like the trombone and saxophone is, I'm mainly tailgating and feeding off of what the saxophone is playing. I mean, we might do a lot of harmony, or I might be playing a riff and he's gonna pick up on the riff and we start playing together, but nothing is programmed.
Only thing's programmed with Rebirth is the format. We have a very difficult format.
Yeah.
That's what makes us a lot different than a lot of the bands, because our formats are totally different. Some songs we have 3 solos, some songs we have 1 solo, some songs we have 2 solos.
Exactly.
Some songs we go around 2 times around, and then the solos. Some songs we just go 1 time. But the format of our songs are really what makes us stand out. It doesn't matter who's leading the song. It's the format of where that song is supposed to go at, and everybody knowing where that song go at. If you see a guy sitting in with us, most of the time you see him
Trying
looking
to figure out where.
around like, man, where the hell I belong at?
Yeah.
You belong right there. Stay right there. Don't move. That's it.
Well, right. It'll
You
just
make it
fall
look
on
good.
you. Yeah. Just to add to what he was saying about the format, you know, like the format that we originally created was like what the Dirty Dozen was doing, and their format is kind of like a jazz format where you have the trombone, saxophone, and the trumpet being the last soloist. That's really a jazz format. Even the way we set up is like a jazz. It's like a march. We're playing a jazz format in a marching band concert style with a bass drum on one side and a tuba on the other side. That's called marching band concert when you're on the field, because you want to have equal bass on each side. So we're trying to play jazz in that format because the 2 basses really should be next to each other. They shouldn't be separated. But we saw the Dirty Dozen do it, so we thought, hey, that was the way to do it, not knowing that they were doing something that they learned in marching band. And as I learned more about marching band, I was like, okay, that's why you do that? Like, so we do jazz in that format where the trumpet is the last soloist, which is not necessarily weak, because if you're doing a second line, I always tell our saxophone player, does anyone ever come up to you in a second line and say, man, that solo you played was the great, they can't even hear this guy. I was like, so why are you taking a solo? So it's really a jazz format being played out on the street. So there are a lot of different things that are going on that are really cool to just check out.
We basically try to sound like a set at all times. Even when we're on the street with it just being me on the snare drum, Shorty on the bass and the cymbal, still try to make it sound like one person.
My cymbal basically is used for timing. I keep the timing to keep the time on the cymbal because I'm playing on a 2 and 4, and this is basically playing on a 1 and 2. Sometimes I switch it up and play a straight 4. So I do different things within this. Some of the guys in the band say, man, without the cymbal, man, it throws me off. And I'm like,
without the cymbal, I don't have no timing. Without that cymbal, I'm through. I'm like the rest of the cats.
And it pretty much, it can cut through almost anything because I'm playing a cymbal with a screwdriver. This is another story too. One night we were playing the Maple Leaf. Our trumpet player, Derek Shasby, he said, man, you have nothing to play the cymbal with. I said, no. He said, hold on. So he goes to his car, he pulls out a screwdriver. I said, screwdriver? He said, yeah, man, just use that. So I started playing the cymbal with the screwdriver, and I continue to play it that way because when you hit the cymbal with the screwdriver, you have metal on metal. It sounds like a rock hitting water. If you ever out near the lake and you throw a rock in water and you're real close to it, it makes a real fine splash, like just like that. And if we're playing real loud, you can hear this little splash over everything. It cuts through anything. And so I say, well, that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna just stay with the screwdriver on the cymbal. It's not a weapon. People think it's a weapon. No, it's not a weapon.
Mine,
Using it with an ice pick.
Yeah, it's like no, it's not a weapon.
mine is totally different. I just wanted to be different. I I like to play the set, but you can't play the set in the brass band because he done took the bass drum, and he got.
In other words, you be bored with that one drum.
Yes,
Implement some other.
yeah, I get bored fast. I like to add drums. Sometimes you might come here and see me with tum-tum drums and cowbells and all kind of other stuff, but the cymbals are something that I keep most of the time on stage gigs, mainly because it gives a different element to the sound. It makes it sound more like a set
Right.
than just two guys on drums. And a lot of people will come up there and ask, you know, if they hear the band from the back and they can't really see, they'll be like, man, what was that? Y'all playing the set up there? I don't see the bass drum and the hi-hat. There's just two cymbals, a snare drum and a bass drum, and a hi-hat cymbal. And we try to make that sound as close as possible to a set. And we do a lot of funk rhythms using that. As a matter of fact, let's do a funk rhythm and we can show them how we implement that. Then we go into the full little songs and we out of here.
All right.
Thank you, Shorty.